Hi, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about factoring by grouping, which is under the greatest common factor. All right, so we dealt with these kinds of problems, greatest common factor, in other videos that you guys can go back and check. But in this case, we're going to use factoring by grouping, which is within the greatest common factor topic. All right, so we have these two problems here. The first one is a to the third power plus 5a squared plus 3a plus 15. So we want to factor this. So anytime we're going to factor any expression, ladies and gentlemen, what we do is what? Is to find out if we have something in common for all of them. Do we have something in common for all of these four terms here? I don't see any. Okay? So the next move is to be able to, so we have four terms here, right? We have four of them. So factoring by grouping is actually asking you to split your expression in two parts. So you have a to the third plus 5a squared plus 3a plus 15. So you have two groups. All right? That's the reason why we call it factor by grouping. All right? Now, once you do that, the idea is to be able to take each of the groups and then factor them individually. So that means we have a to the third power plus 5a squared here. How do we factor this one? By using the greatest common factor still. What do we have in common for those two? When you look at the coefficient here is 1, that's an invisible one. And this one is 5, correct? But they have nothing in common to pull out, okay? But then when it comes to the variables, we have a to the third and a to the second power. Which one is going to be the greatest common factor out of those two? It's going to be a to the second power. Why? Is because if you divide these two by a squared, it's going to come out evenly. All right? So you have a squared, and all the time, let me give you a tip. Ladies and gentlemen, let me give you a tip. The tip is, whenever you're dealing with the variables, the one with the smallest power is always going to be your greatest common factor. So keep that in mind. The variable with the smallest power will always be the one which is going to be the greatest common factor. All right? So that's a great tip that I just gave you. All right, so let's go ahead and then see what's happening here. So now we got to divide a to the third power by a to the second power. Okay, so we can do it even here. So if you divide that, and then you divide this one as well. So a to the third power divided by a to the second power will give you what? A to the 1 power, correct? Because you're subtracting when you are dividing the variables. You subtract the powers. 3 minus 2, which is 1. Remember, we also have it in the videos already on our YouTube channel. So please go back and check those videos that talk about the power rules, okay? So this is 1 here. So plus, we have 5 here. So when you divide this one, you get 5 down here, correct? And then a squared, this is out. You end up with a plus 5. Are you guys with me so far? Good. Now, we go to the second group now. So first group, second group. And we're going to do the same thing, finding the greatest common factor. So what's the greatest common factor here? So we have to bring down the plus sign. For 3 and 15, which one is going to be the greatest common factor? That'll be 3, all right? That'll be 3 because 3 can divide 3 1 time, 15 can divide 3 5 times, okay? So then once you divide by 3 and 3, you end up with a here because the 3 cross out, and 15 divided by 3 is 5. Ladies and gentlemen, what are we seeing now? What do we see? Inside the parentheses, we have the same factor, all right? Inside the parentheses, we have the same factors. So that'll be a plus 5, that we're going to take it out as one common factor, and whatever left in front of the parentheses, we put them also together. So we're going to have a squared plus 3 here, and you are done. All right? So this is how it works, okay? So you split them in 2, and make sure that, you find the greatest common factor for each of the groups, and then you will see if you're on the right track, if you're doing well, you will see that whatever you have inside the parentheses are going to be the same So you carry that out as the common factor now, which is a plus 5. And then whatever you have in front of the parentheses, you put them also together. And then this is how you are done. But guys, you can always check your answer to see if you're doing it right or wrong. Let's do that very quickly for this problem here. So let's check it out. So to check it out now, you're going back and then use and multiply. So that means you have a plus 5 times a squared plus 3. So now you have to multiply. So you have to use the, you have to have a times a squared. You have to have this one as well. This one too. And that one as well. Okay? So that's multiplication of two factors here. Okay? So we call it also the FOIL method. For some of you guys, you already heard about it before. That's the FOIL method. That's the first, the outer, the inner, and then the last. Okay? So you have the first, which is this one, the outer, which is that, the inner, and then the last. Okay? We call it the FOIL method, which is used a lot in the USA, jargon. Okay? So let's go at it. So this one is a times a squared is what? Is a to the third power, because when you multiply the same variable, what do you do to the powers? You added the powers. So this is an invisible one. 1 plus 2 is 3. And then a times 3 plus 3a. And then 5 times a squared is 5a squared. And 5 times 3, which is 15. All right? So as you guys can see, that's the same thing as what we have here. The only difference is that instead of 5a squared plus 3a, we have 3a plus 5 squared. It's just the same thing. So it's just the same thing as that one. So you can check it like that just to make sure that you are on the right track. Okay? So let's go to the second problem here. So we have 4x minus 20 minus 3xy plus 15y. So now the good news is that now we're dealing with two variables, x and y, okay, which is different than this one here where we're only dealing with a. But this one we have two variables. But you should not be shaken. You should not be scared because now we're good, okay? So again, you got to think about, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, all right? A lot of times you use the factoring by grouping under this topic when you have 4 terms. Keep that in mind, okay? So that we are able to split in 2. But sometimes you will split in 2 and it may not work. So you have to shuffle things around. But we are not there yet. Okay? So let's go here. So when we split it in 2, then we have to factor this one here. 4x minus 20. What's happening? For the numbers, we have 4 and then 20. What's the greatest common factor there? It's 4. All right? So it's 4. So 4 divided by 4, 20 divided by 4. So we have x left from the first one and minus 5 left for the second one. Are we good? All right? So let's continue. So then now in this case, what would be the greatest common factor here? So you always got to find the greatest common factor for the numbers, and then you got to get the greatest common factor for the variables. So what's the greatest common factor for the numbers? You have negative 3 and 15. What's the highest number that can divide 3 and 15 evenly? Okay, that can go into 3 and 15 evenly. That is 3. All right? And then, guys, whenever you have the sign here, that is a positive or a negative, you always keep the sign here. Okay? So if this were to be positive 3, xy, you have a positive sign here as well. Okay? So we have negative then 3. So that's our greatest common factor. And then what else? What else do we have in common? Got to be careful, okay? Don't go too fast, all right? So what else do we have in common here? Y, because we have y also associated, y here and y there. So it got to be negative 3y. So then you can divide by negative 3y. You divide by negative 3y. So what's going to be left from the first term here? So negative 3 out, y out, only x left. We good? And then you go for the second term here. Positive 15 divided by negative 3 is going to give us what? Negative 5. And then while we're out, this is what you have. So, guys, what do we see? X minus 5 inside the parentheses. So anytime you're dealing with factoring by grouping, you split up, you find the greatest common factor for the first term, you find the greatest common factor for the second term. Whatever you have inside the parentheses have to be the same. If they are not the same, you're doing something wrong. You got to check it again. All right? So here we are. So we got this one here. So the common factor, which is x minus 5, we have it. And again, whatever left in front of the parentheses, we put them together. So that would give us what? 4 minus 3y. And then you are finished. Okay? So you are done. So you should go back, to these problems. Take your time. Don't go too fast. Learn step by step, and then you're going to be fine. Okay?